Okay, Chiefs Kingdom, we are back. This is the AP breakdown on the Arrowhead Pride YouTube, Twitter, Facebook page. Eventually, hopefully. Right now, we're just streaming on my personal X page, so shout out if you're watching on that. Also streaming to the Arrowhead Pride YouTube page. My name is Ron Kopp Jr., now the contributing editor at arrowheadpride.com. Reintroduce your myself to you all, and with me tonight was supposed to be the lead analyst, now lead analyst, taking my former title at the site, Caleb James at CJ Scoobs on Twitter. After 40 minutes of trying, for some reason, we just could not get us to link up on this StreamYard. And so let me know if any of you watching out there having any difficulties hearing me, seeing the video, because for some reason I was not able to get Caleb on here. So that is a little disclaimer. Caleb and I want to get back to bringing you guys film breakdown, all 22 coaches film breakdown. Just giving you a little perspective outside of the broadcast, outside of what you watched on Sunday, maybe even when you rewatch the game, the highlights, giving you a little more than you get from that. Caleb deserves the lead analyst title. I think he does a great job of breaking down the game. Yeah, we are off and running here on the AP breakdown. I think my headset is breaking down on me here. So maybe we'll just go through a quick set of plays here before we get out of here tonight, and me and Caleb will be back to bring you guys more all 22 coaches film breakdown of the Chiefs. But it's always kind of interesting to break down a loss, right? And this loss was deserving of the breakdown. I think one of the first things, and if you follow me on Twitter, you've seen me point this out already. The first thing that stands out about this loss, and I like to look at the offense in a loss like this, where just seemed like the offense just didn't get it done enough. The defense obviously could have played better, could have held down Buffalo more, but especially in the first half, you talk about the Chiefs just needing to put up a few more points. Whether it was that this first drive, what you're seeing right here, going 3 and out right away, 2 incompletions, not great. Or it's that third drive after the touchdown, settling for a field goal after kind of a first down run that gets blown up. You have momentum going into that run, and all of a sudden it's 2nd and 12, incompletion, 3rd and 12. And I'll get into all that potentially, seeing how long my headphones will last me here. But the thing to point out on this play, and you'll see it throughout the game, is Buffalo was just on it. These are staple plays that the Chiefs like to run. You see this all the time early in the game where Mahomes, he's going to drop back. He's going to look to the strong side. It's a 3-2 formation where you have 3 receivers to one side, 2 receivers to the other in terms of who's out to catch pass. And so you see that the strong side's pretty covered up. Not necessarily plenty of places to go. He's actually kind of reading that strong side. Linebacker. It's Bernard right here. Actually, I should put my cursor right here so you guys can see it. Number 8. He is all on Kelce, right? All eyes on Kelce. So what that does is widen open the middle of the field here for this backside little slant from the slot for Hollywood. You've seen them hit this actually. In my head, I go back all the way to week 1, early in the game. They hit this to Hollywood for a big gain, where Mahomes is truly just going, quick read to the play side. Don't really like what I see. Obviously, also looking at that number 8, I know middle field's going to be open. I'm coming back Hollywood. But the Bills are just on it. I mean, you could argue that Hollywood, could make this catch through traffic. But at the same time, you got to give credit to the Bill. He's right on his hip pocket. That's a tough catch to make through that. And so that was that second down after a 3-yard run. So 2nd and 7 and 3rd and 7. You just like to see Mahomes be quicker on this. This is man coverage. Although I will say, this is kind of a mixed match coverage in terms of you see Trey White have a man turn and then all of a sudden come back and look for that out route coming. I think that tells you, again, the Bills are just on it. The Bills were ready for the Chiefs. The Bills were ready for their plays, knew what was coming for the most part. And I think you got to give credit to Buffalo, but also, maybe be a little skeptical of why that was the case. So that's how the first drive ended. Second drive, though, what do you know? We get into heavy personnel against Buffalo's light package. We get them kind of thinking, oh, they're going to run the ball here. Get kind of closer to the line of scrimmage in terms of having that slot player right here, Lewis, closer to the line of scrimmage. And what do you know? We get wide open window for Rashee Rice down the field after play action. Tyquan Thornton, shout out. You're going to see him take 3 defenders all the way with him down the field. Just stretch that so far. Pause. And so Rice is able to, get out of bounds right there and get a huge play. But that led to the first touchdown. That was great. That was a great drive. Had momentum there. But this is the drive that I was just talking about where didn't like how things ended here. If you guys recall, leading up to this 2nd and 12 or 13 play, it was 2nd and 12, I believe. Kareem had a 13-yard run from under center, huge run, gets him past midfield, a lot of momentum, has to go out because he's tired. Clyde comes in, gets blown up, 2-yard loss. And so here's the play following that. I pointed out on Twitter, wish Mahomes would have gave Noah Gray a better chance to make a play here. Just kind of is late and inaccurate with the pass. You'll see it better from the end zone angle. But I will also point out, I wish he would have maybe settled here as well instead of forcing maybe a tight window field throw down the field. Again, shout out to Buffalo, making tight window throws on pretty staple concepts for the Chiefs. This is a pretty staple throw the Chiefs like to make, especially with Noah Gray being the guy releasing instead of Kelce. The attention's going to be underneath on Kelce, right? Gray is going to be the one that might get a little bit more, space down the field. And again, you saw that was kind of late and inaccurate, but also with that attention on Kelce, you might just on 2nd and 12 throw this check down to Kareem, especially if, and I don't have it clipped here on this set of plays, but this next play, and I will pull it up. The next play you get from the Chiefs after that 2nd down is a 3rd down play where it's just a soft play call. It's just a settle for better field goal distance play call. Let me bring that up to the screen for us. And, that's where in Buffalo, you already have 3 losses. Denver has 2 losses. You'd think there'd be a little more urgency to score, get a better play in this situation to go for it on 4th down potentially, or just be in a better position. But we settle for a speed out, get 7 yards, get a better field goal position for Harrison Butker. Didn't love the play call. I'll just put it that way. That's really all there is to say to it. But it makes the game, it was in a 7-7 game at that point. Chiefs do get the field goal. Hurrah. Totally ended up mattering later in the game. And so we get to the Chiefs' 4th drive, and this is more to talk about here. Let me get it pulled up for y'all. 4th drive here. And it's just where you got to, again, give credit to Buffalo for being all over it. Mahomes clearly here, he wants to go to Kelce. He wants to find a way to get Kelce the ball here. And Kelce's probably just on a little option route, right, where he's trying to find space. But Bills linebackers all over it. Doesn't necessarily allow Mahomes to have an easy option to him. And by the time he can get to anywhere else, get to looking anywhere else on the field, the pressure's getting home, right? Trey is kind of allowing, the pressure to cable a little bit. You'd like to see Mahomes maybe step up elsewhere in the pocket, but look at that other side, right? Bosa's coming into, he was, he did stay at the front of the pocket, but you see all that kind of in front of you in your peripheral, as you also see that Kelce is locked up. Not a lot of places to go for sure. And so that's just kind of was the theme of the game. But here is really the theme of the game is, again, the Bills being all over the Chiefs, predictable play calling. Not predictable. Predictable is probably really harsh when you hear it but it just is how the easiest way to put it for me, honestly, because in a 3rd and short situation, like this is just an obvious, everyone saw it coming kind of play, right? And it almost turns into a disastrous pick 6. I mean, is this not almost a disastrous pick 6 if 24 has any sort of ball skills? I mean, it looks like he has a chance to just catch that and run. And this play comes back, or it could have came back, I guess, if it was completed because Jawan Taylor was a legal formation. But then, again, it's man coverage. 24 is there all the way. It's just predictable. And then on the ensuing play, this is 4th and 3. So that last play was 3rd and 3. So now you have 4th and 3. And this is what, and again, if you follow me on Twitter, I said it. It just felt like the Chiefs ran the plays that were like, hey, in this situation, we're going to run this play the most. Like if you look at their tendencies, it's probably like the most, like, when you have your Spotify or iTunes, like, the most played music, most played songs. Like these, it felt like in certain situations, whether it's red zone, third down, and we'll get into the red zone stuff, but this is 4th and 3. This is like the most basic play that the Chiefs run, against like a team, especially in when they need a quick 4 or 5 yards, right? It's a lot of times it's 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5 that you see this play. A lot of times it's a start a drive just to get like a drive starter going. You see them run this play where it's going to be a pretty much a high-low concept. Rice, and they'll switch it up, whether Kelce is the guy underneath or going over the top. Right now, he's the guy going over the top. Kelce or Rice is staying underneath. And basically, it's a pretty simple read. You have this running back coming out to the flat, which the formation starts off as a 3-by-2, right? All of a sudden, it's going to turn into a 4-by-1. You're going to get 4 receivers out onto this side. You're going to try to mess with their kind of their zone responsibilities, having that. But the Chiefs do that all the time. Teams are used to that. So it's not really, news to anybody. But that's where it's a staple thing for the Chiefs. They do this all the time. They try to widen these guys to the flat with this guy, make this guy make a decision. Okay, am I going to kind of fade away with Kelce, right? Because like he naturally kind of takes me away and all of a sudden I'm Rice is open underneath. Or am I going to stick to Rice and let Kelce be open underneath? And what happens is he just plays this out really well where he doesn't necessarily commit to one or the other until Mahomes commits to one, which that's where Mahomes just take a second, read it out, let the play develop. And what will likely happen is 24 is likely going to just kind of be a We officially lost the mic, so we're going raw mic here. So apologies to anyone actually still. Apologies to anyone listening. We're going raw mic here now for the rest of the show. But what we have here, we'll have a charged mic next time, fellas. Next time, ladies and gentlemen. But what you do have here when we're talking about this play is if Mahomes just reads this out, right? If Mahomes is just patient, a little more patient with it, if he just kind of, lets 24 commit himself to a player, then one of these guys is going to be open for the first down. It looks to me like he's probably just going to be in no man's land. Like he's probably just going to kind of sit here as a sitting duck, and he'll probably notice Rice, sit here, and get on him. But really, and I get it because he is widening, right? And so Mahomes is watching his feet. He's watching 24 widen to the flat, and he's saying, boom, I want to go to 4 because I see that. But clearly 24 is just, really quick. Or again, you'd like to see Mahomes let this play out a little bit. Maybe 24 is just a little too tight to 4, and all of a sudden you have Kelce right over the middle, which, again, you see over here. You just get a little bit of movement from 8 over here, respecting what's going on this side of the field, Worthy, which here's another whole part of it, which, is underrated part of this. Worthy, if Mahomes, really doesn't like what he sees here, really is uncongested, he looks here and he pivots and he has Worthy, open on the first down. That's I get it. It's 4th and 3. You're not necessarily wanting your quarterback to take the time to go through his progression. At the same time, this felt like Mahomes was really sped up. It actually felt very similar to the Jacksonville pick 6, where he really just didn't go through his reads. He really just said, I want this to be the read. And this one is not as egregious because it really is a good play by 24. I think he does shuffle to the flat. Mahomes sees that, and that's why he triggers. In the Jacksonville play, it really was just he didn't, check to see if the guys were dropping out from showing blitz. But this play, that's where you do have to just kind of give a lot of credit to Buffalo, as much as you want to be critical of what's going on. Buffalo did a really good job of making things hard, like of not allowing the Chiefs to roll out their vanilla game plan or roll out just whatever they want to do and win, which they do a lot. That's the thing. We all do want to be critical of them, or not critical, or maybe just pointing out the fact that they did do, came in with a pretty basic game plan against Buffalo, but they do that a lot against a lot of teams. Honestly, they just trust that their guys can execute their scheme regardless of what kind of defense they're playing. They do that to save the good stuff. You just, 3 losses in the AFC already. Denver's already got 2 losses in the head. You just kind of hope,
you wish there was maybe a few more wrinkles brought out here to not let this game slip away like it did. It was 28-13 at one point in the fourth quarter. Shout out Mahomes for bringing them back. This is the sequence right before the halftime, though. And what you love to see here is man beaters, right? Bills say, hey, we're going to man you up kind of pretty traditionally, right? We're going to have a spy. They did have a spy a few times, but yeah, we're just going to one high man it up. Hollywood Brown, dust him, and he almost has a touchdown. Now, it is funny to see the people. We love Mahomes, we love dimes. This wasn't necessarily a dime. If it was a dime, he puts it more towards the sideline, away from the defender, so he can run in for the end zone for a touchdown. So we don't have the following plays. The following plays are just a mess and really were the reason the Chiefs lost this game, in my opinion. You score a touchdown here, it's a whole different ball game going into halftime. And what you have on the first one is the Chiefs try to get corn dog, right? This is where I talk about the basic stuff. Like, everyone watched the Super Bowl 3 years ago. They know what corn dog is. They know the Chiefs can do that in the red zone, where they're going to try to make the defense, overcommit to shifting their defense away, especially a zone, right? Like, hey, we got to shift. We got to kind of change responsibilities on the fly. And then all of a sudden, snap, boom, before you can even think, they got, Worthy's back out in the flat. Well, doesn't work. Bills are all over it. And then by the time Mahomes can go somewhere else, and, again, you say before the time he can go somewhere else, honestly, if he just kind of sticks with it, kind of reads that, this middle linebacker right here is kind of floating away from Kelce, he really should just hit Kelce right away. But interior pressure, you'll see it from the end zone angle. Trey Smith with that injury, that was a bigger deal than probably a lot of people made light of, I guess, right? Because we love Trey Smith. We think he's a dog. He is a dog, obviously, no thinking about it. But that back injury, I think you did see a few times where the pocket was collapsing on Trey's side. And this is an example of that, where I do think it impacts Mahomes a little bit in terms of being able to get back to Kelce here. Kelce is open. Milano's back, right? But look at Milano. He does fade kind of back inside here. And so there was a window to Kelce. And so you hate to see that, but here's a tight window to Kelce that Mahomes does try and lets, it allows Kelce to get absolutely rocked. This is just another example of the Bills being all over it. Chiefs love to do this against, zone defenses in the red zone. We're just going to try to bunch it up. Just going to try to space out these zone defenders, right? Just going to try to widen the window as wide as possible for Kelce. They're going to try to, use Worthy's speed and Gray just kind of, being the guy at the goal line, kind of, saying, hey, I'm about to score, trying to get the attention, so where Kelce can kind of leak away from that middle defender, into, the back of the end zone towards the sideline more. And that's where Mahomes is going. Ball's just a little behind, a little late, in my opinion. I think the ball needs to get out just maybe not even late, but it just needs to be a little not on his back shoulder as much. He might get nailed as he's catching it, but he didn't have any chance to catch this one. We'll see it from the end zone angle. But again, you have to give credit for the safety. Is it Bishop again? Because if it is, my God, that guy had the game of his life against the team that, maybe it really embarrassed him that he had that catch Xavier Worthy had last year in the AFC Championship game. That was somehow a catch that he pinned against Bishop, way down the field when Mahomes was in trouble. Maybe that really got to Bishop because he had a heck of a game. Again, respecting Gray. And look, that is pretty, shout out 24. Look how quick he is to come back and just be a missile into Kelce's chest. You do have to give 24 credit here. But again, at the same time, if Mahomes, that is really the only throw to have there. So I was thinking of another play where maybe there was a chance he had Worthy on the goal line. I don't think he does actually have Worthy at all. So I might have been thinking of another play, but here, honestly, it's the right throw. Just maybe needs to be a little more accurate, a little maybe quicker. Maybe that ball needs to get out. You can see Kelce is kind of starting to turn while Mahomes is still, loading up rather than the ball's releasing. And so there's, at the same time, that ball's there as soon as Kelce's turning. So I don't know. Being nitpicky here, anyone who follows me knows I just like watching this stuff and nothing against 15. He's MB Pat to me. But just a down performance in terms of, kind of executing in some ways in the first half. Second half, obviously, he brought him back. But we will look at some of the second half stuff real quick before we call it a night. And some of the second half stuff starts with, again, the Bills just being all over it. And that's where the Chiefs were almost just serving them up on a silver platter a lot of times. Like, hey, guys, do you want to blow this play up? Well, here's, we're going to run a play that you probably know is coming. And so this is a 2nd and 7. 2nd and 7, first drive of the second half. RPO. Mahomes reads it correctly because, he has, it's going to be a one-on-one with Worthy in the flat. This number 8 linebacker right here is definitely committing to defending the run right. So, if he were to kind of stay softer about here, he'd probably hand it off. So you can't really fault Mahomes for throwing this or anything. Again, 24 is just like, all right, well, I know a bubble screen's coming, so I'm just going to blow it up. I mean, it's almost that simple, and it's that frustrating when you look back at it. Some of these plays were just like 2nd and 7. That's the Chiefs do that a lot, where they try to get to a 3rd and short by getting a quick play. A lot of times that's a first down because Worthy is that kind of playmaker. And so this is what follows that play, where after kind of a long game, Mahomes might be a little frustrated. Mahomes just a little frustrated. Maybe he leaves the pocket here when he probably didn't need to. And if he would have stayed in the pocket, he might have been able to see X get open on the backside here. Watch where he's going to kind of run that post corner. Get the safe, again, this safety is committing probably because Mahomes is starting to scramble out, right? So yeah, it probably isn't coming open maybe necessarily as easy as it looks right here. But we'll look at it from the end zone angle, and you will see, you'd love to see Pat kind of stick in there a little more. This is a play Caleb would have broke down for us. Caleb, the pass protection expert, I would say, especially, in comparison to me. I was probably necessary there. But yeah, no, you just kind of see how 3-man rush with a spy. Pat probably should be hanging in there. But at this point in the game, that's kind of where it was at, where it just the chemistry between Pat and the pass protection had broken down to that extent. And this is a play of a reason why, Pat was feeling that way. This was the next drive in the second half where you see Jawaan Taylor just get absolutely blown up by Rousseau. And it does affect Mahomes' throwing platform, right? He's throwing that off balance. It comes up short. We're going to look back at what X kind of looked like on that route because you can see it here. You saw that late separation. If Mahomes puts that out in front, there's a chance Worthy goes and gets that, makes a better play on it. Instead, he can't put it out in front because Jawaan Taylor is getting blown up into his throwing platform. Not easy as a quarterback to make throws when you have defensive linemen in your throwing, finishing, following through platform, especially long, deep bombs like this. We'd love to see these two connect on more of these, but this was the problem last year that we all blamed it on, right? Was that the pass protection was not allowing these two to connect, and this is kind of what we see here, unfortunately. This is later in the half, and this, I believe, is after the BS intentional grounding, which we all know is BS. No one will talk about it leading First Take or any of the sports national media sports shows because hey, if it's just the Chiefs, bad calls happen, right? That's sports, that's refs, that's what happens. That's what we all say when it happens against the Chiefs. But when it happens for the Chiefs, then it becomes a national talking point. I'm done. This is not the show to talk about that. I'm sorry, y'all. But what I will say about this is I do think this was a little bit of frustration. Same thing where he wasn't trusting the pocket, where I do think at some point you just got to let it rip. And by let it rip, I mean, watch, is this Xavier down here? I believe it is. Safety's just kind of not in a great position where if he did just let that rip down the left sideline, watch the safety on this side, just kind of flip-flopping his feet too much where he's not in the best position to take away X if Mahomes was to launch that. And Mahomes had the protection here, it seemed like. Step up. But Trey was getting beat, and so we'll see that from the end zone angle as well. But Trey was having a rough time, unfortunately. We love us some Trey Smith. But that was actually good pass protection, so I'm not even going to say that there. That's Pat needing to make the play. And again, I think the frustration from the misintention or the ridiculous intentional grounding, which was the play right before that, kind of built up and went into that a little bit. So That's where we'll finish today. You know what? No, let me pull up a little more. I don't mean to be a hater, so this is kind of why I didn't want to. I was maybe gonna not show this, but this isn't being a hater. This first play, I do think it's just more of a we have a fun running back in Brashard Smith, but long ways to go in terms of being the NFL running back we need him to be. This could have been a big running play, and this is something that you're going to see me write about for the snap count analysis for Arrowhead Pride. So check out the site tomorrow. But it did seem like the Chiefs went away from heavier personnel sets as the game went on, which is playing into Buffalo's hands. You want to play in heavier personnel sets against Buffalo because they are a light personnel defense. A lot of times they won't even care what you have on offense. They're going to play a nickel personnel package, which means 5 defensive backs, 2 linebackers. Even if you have 2 tight ends on the field, a lot of times they're going to match it with that. And so you need to run the ball at them. You need to pass out of those plays as well. If you trust your tight ends, Noah Gray, I think is leaving a lot to be desired this year, unfortunately, after a great year last year. But it did seem like the Chiefs went away from that as the game went on, which you saw in the second drive. If you go back and watch the second drive completely, it's something I could have pointed out better tonight as we watched. But again, we have a lot to talk about. But you watch that second drive, the touchdown drive, a lot of the plays were out of heavier personnel, 12 personnel, 13 personnel packages, which means 2 tight ends, 3 tight ends. That's how you beat the Buffalo Bills. That's why the Ravens destroy the Bills defense when they play them, because they're constantly playing out of those formations, just running the crap out of the ball, running the snot out of the, out of the ball. And so this play was a good, well-designed run play out of a heavier personnel package set, right? Where you have a 21, 2 running backs, 1 tight end, 2 receivers. And so Kareem is actually like, kind of a fullback type or, an H-back. And he's leading the way for Brashard Smith here on the misdirection at first, running over here, kind of playing as a kick out man to an extent, or just kind of more of the lead blocker. You're going to see him go out, find that play side linebacker, just engage. And Brashard's going to bounce outside of him. It's going to be a 4-yard gain, kind of, nothing play. If you go from the end zone angle, you're going to see how the play developed pretty well for him to cut up underneath Kareem's block. Creed was kind of setting that wall there. And really, if he kind of puts his foot in the ground right here, gets upfield, he's going to make 24 have to make a decision. Well, he's vertical downhill upfield. He could make just one little more speed cut and he might be gone. So this is just where the run game, there's only so much the offensive line can set up and do. The Chiefs have a very inexperienced, explosive running back, and then the other running backs they have just don't have that explosion they need in the run game. So that's just where this is an example of that. Not to be a hater, I love me some Brashard Smith. The breakout game is coming. It just may be coming later than I thought, especially my betting portfolio. I've bet on the Brashard Smith breakout game a few times. But here, the rest of it is just kind of mishaps in the run game. And what do you know? All the mishaps seem to be going to the right side when they run to the right side of the formation. That's all I can say there. This was, Clyde just running it was never going to work. Let's just be honest here. And Kingsley definitely gets his shit rocked on the, guy's going to give him the old swim, back across, a backside gap, kind of come back across. But again, you saw Jawaan Taylor go out of the game late with an ankle, and he may be out for a little bit. And if Josh Simmons now back in the building is going to step right into left tackle, which he absolutely should, get Jalen Moore at right tackle, get him going there, because even before that ankle injury, this may be one of the reasons why you're not seeing much success from the Chiefs ground game. Jawaan Taylor getting absolutely blown up quite a few times. And it's just the Chiefs need a little more from him from that position. He's been playing well going into this game, and then this game is just all resorted back. It seemed like even we had some penalties there. So that's what I have for you tonight, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate you joining. I appreciate you watching. Appreciate you listening. Shout out Kyle Peterson. He just says it's damn frustrating. It is. And you're going to see bigger version of my face here. Background is still a work in progress, as you can see. But we are going to be coming to you. This whole show is a work in progress, obviously, as you can tell. But we're going to be coming to you much more frequently as the playoff stretch, the home stretch of the season gets down to it, right? We've got a bye week. pretty much the midway point of the regular season. So shout out the Chiefs for getting a midway bye week. I think it works out perfect. At the same time, they have 4 losses. They're not even in the playoffs as of right now. So we have a lot of work to do in Chiefs Kingdom. And we are here to break down what the Chiefs need to do to get to that point. I love doing it. Caleb loves doing it. He will be with me next time. I don't want to guarantee it, but I sure hope he is, because he is a great mind to talk about this with, and we will have much more fun on the show next time. So appreciate you guys joining. Appreciate you guys watching. Chiefs, they'll be fine. Setback in Buffalo. Where have I heard that before? 5 seasons in a row. We will catch you guys next week with Denver Broncos on our mind in preparation for that big game in Mile High. All right, y'all. Have a good night. Go Chiefs.